Okay. Welcome to Cut to the Chase with Jen and Dan. So I think I'm Dan Ferrulo. This is
Jen. I think I'm not going to say that's obvious, but perhaps.
Well, so I think last week I had a little bit of a mix-up with the name.
A joke.
I had a little bit of a mix-up with the name because we changed it a couple of times when we were like, should it be Cut to the Chase with Jen and Dan or Jen and Dan Cut to the Chase? So I realized as I was looking at the video from last week that I had said Jen and Dan Cut to the Chase, but we had decided based on how it looks on the art for the podcast that Cut to the Chase with Jen and Dan sounds better, right?
It worked out all right, but I get tired enough occasionally. I'm like, cut to the Dan with Jen and Chase, and that's just no good for anybody.
No, absolutely.
We managed to get the first episode out.
We did, and this was my first foray into podcasting. My first time ever on a podcast was when I was on Seacoast Home Crush, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to just kind of like sit and talk a little bit about real estate, and you were interviewing me, which is a little bit of a different format than what we're doing here. But it was a lot of fun, so I'm really excited about this, and this is our episode 2. So yeah, Jen, how's your week been?
It's been awesome, and I do want to point out, voice made for podcast. And I know we're going to do tandems, so we're looking at the video here, so podcasters occasionally will hear stuff that sounds like we're referring to something that you can't see, and that's the video camera. So, excellent. Voice made for radio. But good week. I'm excited about our topics. I'm ready to dive back in and kind of be a little more cut to the chasey this week.
Perfect. All right, so let's jump in then. So the first article that we wanted to share is an article from Realtor Magazine talking about aging appliances and whether they should mean a lower asking price for sellers. So basically the article just talks a little bit about that as homes are getting a little bit older and the appliances are maybe haven't been updated, whether that should mean that the house should be priced at a little bit lower to compensate for those, or whether they shouldn't. And I think in different markets it's a little bit different. So Jen, what are we seeing here in our market?
Well, I think that the condition of the home is really exactly where it is, and buyers are up against a lot of competition. So there hasn't been recently any room for a lot. So this is that's kind of a good example of, I don't want to call it the ADD life because, that's a different situation, but the constant multitask life, which is a whole lot of fun. But back to the appliance issue, in some markets, when you go to buy a house, if you see that the appliances are very, very outdated, that might be something that you're addressing in your offer price on the home, thinking that you would be offering less than the house because, it's not up to date. But around here, the only thing that's going to happen is if at your home inspection something doesn't function properly. Let's say the cooktop doesn't heat up. That's something that you could bring up because everything in the house should be functioning at the basic level it's supposed to at home inspection. But tell me about the article, Dan.
Yeah, so the article talks a little bit about how during the due diligence or inspection period that a lot of times people try to make negotiations based on mostly the large expensive parts of the home, which are really and so I guess maybe backing up a little bit to the way I view home inspections for buyers that I'm working with is that we're there in order to find things that we haven't seen, maybe hidden things that we and the sellers of course don't know about. So we're there to make sure that there's no material defects or no safety issues in the property, rather than there to nitpick over whether an appliance is 10 years old or 5 years old, which and you brought up a good point earlier when we were talking that appliances cost less than 1% of a home. Like you can buy a decent set of appliances for maybe $5,000. So that is kind of something that, at least here and things that I've been experiencing with buyers that I've been working with, is that the appliances are something that we don't really take into too much account, because we see them as we're walking through the property and we make our offer based on that. So it's not really something that here in New England, or here in New Hampshire, that we go back and try to negotiate a lower price on.
Yeah, so the other part is that as you're viewing the house as a home buyer, you've already assessed the appliances that are there, so you already know what comes with the house. So getting into that later on is a little bit like, well, we already knew what was here, so it's sort of a moot point. But the article came from Realtor Magazine, and it was, do aging appliances mean a lower asking price? And actually, it is a negotiation point in other areas of the country that have a different kind of market. So it's really what Dan and I got out of this article, other than a great conversation, was how is what we're seeing on the seacoast different than other areas of the country, and how are some of these articles that come up, how can they be confusing for consumers, because that really doesn't indicate, and I think we can all agree, if we were to compare Manhattan to the seacoast of New Hampshire, you would not be writing the same article, but if the article doesn't specify, like, how's someone to know?
Right, exactly. And I think one of the big takeaways here is that sometimes when a home is priced, when people are working out the price with their agent, they're pricing it based on the appliances, or they're pricing it saying, hey, this is going to need maybe $10,000 worth of updates, so let's price it $10,000 lower. Or if they know that people may do that in the initial, they may try to negotiate it down in the initial offer, that maybe they'll price it a little bit higher. So I think basically looking at the article and seeing that it's talking about negotiating after a home inspection or something like that, I think that would not be a place to do it. But if you're walking through a home and you see some older appliances that you know you're going to need to replace, you should just make your offer based on that, rather than trying to go back after the inspection period and looking at things that you've already seen and trying to get some money off of them.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dan, because if your house you're going to put an offer in on, all of the houses in the neighborhood have appliances from the 1980s, and the home you're putting an offer in on has appliances from the 1980s. The going price for that neighborhood is still what it is, inclusive of the 1980s appliances.
Yeah, exactly.
We kind of can't just add in extra. It matters.
It does.
It matters to the neighborhood.
All right, perfect. So let's jump into the next one. So there's a new Freddie Mac mortgage plan that bundles purchases and repairs in one loan.
Love it.
So I do too, actually, because a lot of times the most common loan like this is the FHA 203K loan, which is basically the renovation loan. So what buyers will do, and
say that again. That's like ABC 123 loan. Like what? Before
okay,
I got into real estate, I was like, the what?
FHA 203K. So I don't know where they came up with that or anything like that, but basically it allows buyers to make their loan for a higher amount based on what the cost of repairs to the property are going to be. And this is a great program, or the FHA 203K is a great program in general, because it helps to revitalize a lot of foreclosed properties. That's kind of where I think it gets utilized more often. But there are other ways that one can use a 203K loan that people don't know, or this new mortgage plan by Freddie Mac that I think may be more of like a conventional type loan. So what are some ways that some buyers that people can use it other than just with foreclosed properties?
Well, I mean, I think if you're looking in a tighter market like the one we have here, you might be needing to look at homes that are a little bit less done. So they might not have all the finishes you want, but they've got really great bones. But you might not have a whole lot of savings to put new tile in a bathroom, add some granite to a kitchen. Perhaps you even need to redo a roof. what you can do, especially because right now money is so cheap to borrow, if you can do one loan for the whole thing, you can actually end up getting the house you want pretty close to the price you want. If you're willing to borrow and then have the work done after the fact. It's kind of a neat idea. And it takes away the stress of living in a fixer-upper for a lot of years.
Absolutely.
Some people really like that, and for a lot of people, for budget reasons, that's actually what they need to do. I know at my house, I do one project a year. That's what works for my budget, but you know.
What was your project this year?
So it's the deck.
Nice.
It's the deck. Have not done it yet, but
it's on the horizon.
Stories for another time, people. Let me tell you. Anyway, we digress all the time, but you know, it's a really good way to get your work done all at once, so that for the duration of your time in the house, you can just be enjoying it instead of like, well, when we get to that project, knock it out, and then you're paying the cheap loan amount while money's so inexpensive to borrow.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple things I just wanted to point out from the article that I thought were really cool. So the loan is called the Choice Renovation Loan, and they come with fixed or adjustable interest rates. And this is what I thought was really interesting. They can be used for primary residence, single-family homes, multifamily buildings up to 4 units that are also the owner's primary residence, secondary homes, and single-unit investment properties. So there's lots of options there, whereas if you were to do an FHA 203K, you have to live in the property for at least a year before you can, so it has to be an owner occupied. But then another thing that I thought was really interesting too, that they're saying that the program is explicitly a response to increasing numbers of millennial home buyers, many of whom are facing soaring prices amid a historic slump in home construction. So they feel that it's going to really appeal to multi-generational families who are in need of living space customization, like maybe building an in-law suite or building like a house attached to their house in order to make it so that they can have family members living with them that they weren't doing before. But it's the remodeling industry right now is absolutely huge, and I think that this is a really, really great way to bundle all that together and not have to do it separately, where you would have to take out maybe like a HELOC or something like that in order to get the renovations done. So that's a great way to just do it all up front.
So I'm going to just pick out that one sentence that says historic slump in home construction. So it probably on the surface looks like there are lots of neighborhoods with brand new houses being built all over the seacoast. But what happened is a number of years ago when we had the housing crash, new construction stopped for a long time. And so just like an ecosystem in Mother Nature, we need some new houses to continuously be built to kind of supplement the existing houses so that everybody has homes to be moving out of and moving into. So those years where nothing new was built for all practical purposes has led to the situation we're in now, where you probably have been approached, if you have a house, to say, hey, we have a lot of people that would love to buy your house. We'd love to have more houses to sell to people.
Right.
So that's what that article is referencing. And another reason these loan programs are coming out, because people are looking for other options to make their dream house happen.
Yeah, and it's a great way to one thing you can't change about a property is its location. So if you love the location but you don't love the house, you can turn it into your dream home really easily, which I think is also a really awesome thing, especially here in New England, which we were talking about before. Many of the houses are older, so even if they are just in the they were built in the 80s or even 60s or 70s and just haven't been updated since then. It really is a way to revitalize the housing stock, what is available.
Absolutely. What's our third one?
All right, so our third
I
article.
like this one. This is my favorite topic this week.
Is it? Yeah. So all right, so Zillow offers will make or break the tech giant. So I don't know if you are aware of what Zillow offers are, but it's kind of
Zillow, never heard of them. You can't, listeners on the pod, you cannot see the sarcasm. Like, all over my face. The video folks are probably like rolling their eyes right now.
So, a couple of interesting things about this article. So Zillow offers the way it works. They're in 11 markets right now. Zillow is buying up properties and they're buying them at slightly below market value, and then what they're doing is basically just flipping them and selling them for a little bit higher. They're not flipping them as in that they're doing renovations to them. They're just turning around and selling them. So there are some I think sellers who will really benefit from this and who will really appreciate that they see a number on Zillow's website. Basically their estimate is kind of what they would be receiving as an offer.
Well, less than their estimate, because if Zillow thinks that the house is worth this estimate, they're going to buy it for a little bit less than the estimate, then resell it for the estimate.
So I had heard that the estimate was actually going to be what they were making offers for. So I think they're changing how they work that.
Okay.
But I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be doing it. But either way, they're going to be buying properties and then reselling them. So for some sellers, this may work really great because they may be relocating. They may they may be in a rough financial situation and need to get out of their house. So there are certainly some great situations where this could work for people, but I think some people it may make them jump right over to be like, hey, I need to call a realtor right now.
Yeah, I think the advantage of an iBuyer program like that is that you have a known number. I'm going to give you X dollars for your house. Boom, done. And that definitely has its benefits. So that's going to work for some people. Other folks are going to want to maximize the dollar amount they can get out of their home. And so that method is not going to work. So the tricky part with Zillow and some of the other online estimators is that they are using computers to come up with housing values. And yeah, they do use closed prices and current on the market prices. But what they don't have is they don't have a way to value the condition of the inside of the house. So they don't know that house A has customized everything that is absolutely gorgeous. They have quartz everywhere. It has been impeccably maintained. Give credit for brand new roof, all of that kind of stuff. And house B not only doesn't have those things, but is on a lot adjacent to the electrical power plant.
Sure.
So those things we all know make people want to buy or not buy a house more and less, and that will affect how much money you can get for the house. So Zillow doesn't look at that stuff. So if they're not going to look at that, then the estimate that they're going to give you for the buy it right now, if you have the lousy house, well, yeah, that might be a great deal for you. But if you've got the nicer house, I'm not so sure that that's a good option.
Yeah, well, and I think what's super interesting here too is that we are constantly telling buyers right now that or sellers right now that both buyers and sellers, that the Zestimate really isn't an accurate portrayal of what your home is worth, especially here in New England, because the houses are all different. They're not. It's different, doing a CMA or a market analysis on a property here than it may be in some other countries where there's like 1,000 homes in a subdivision. Some other states where there's like 1,000 homes in a subdivision, and they all 30 or 40 sold in the past year, so you can kind of easily look at them and say, hey, you're going to be right here, and it's very easy to tell. Whereas here in New Hampshire, many of the homes are very different, built at different times, and the Zestimate has been historically inaccurate based on what we're selling the properties for. So it's super interesting to see how. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, I think it's going to do really well in areas like the Midwest, where the housing styles are very, very similar. I came to New England from Chicago, and there are whole grids of blocks of homes from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where it literally, every house on the street it's almost one's a mirror of the other. Oh wow, you got the kitchen on the left, mine's on the right. So yeah, the finishes and the condition of the home are still going to be factors, but pricing them out is a much easier undertaking, and there's so much population there.
Yeah.
There's way more data to confidently get a price.
Yes.
I think in areas like New England, Southern Maine, and then some other historical districts, even if you think down, maybe in the coast of Virginia and some of those areas where there's a lot of colonial stuff, I don't know if it's going to fly the same way because the buildings are so different. And I also wonder, for markets that are tight and pretty hot, I just wonder if any seller is going to ever want, let me ask you this question. So Dan, how would you like to definitely sell your house for less than you could get for it on the open market?
Well, I guess that depends on when I need to sell, how much I need to sell for, like what it's going to be different for everybody.
Exactly.
For me, I think I would rather take my chances on the open market.
Yeah, fewer people, I can say, would like to sell their house for less. And given that the premise is we're going to sell it for a little bit less than what we think is market value.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a cool idea.
It is a cool idea.
But
And it'll be
like
interesting to see how it plays out. But I think Zillow definitely has a leg up over some of the other iBuyer programs like Open Door, just based on the popularity of the website. I mean, everybody shops on Zillow, so it'll definitely be an interesting thing to watch. So yeah, I think that's about all we had for today.
Yeah. Time to wrap it up.
We'll have, if you want to check out any of the articles, we'll have them all linked up in the show notes, and also on the comments or the description on the YouTube page. We would love to hear what you think about any of these articles, or what your opinion is, and what you think of the show. So definitely please leave us a rate the podcast, or leave us a comment.
Yes, you can go to Apple Podcasts and you can leave us a rating. In fact, right in your podcast app, if you are tuning in on your iPad or iPhone, you can actually, there's little stars right there. You can rate us, and reviews we love.
Yes, reviews,
we're only
that was the
2
word I was thinking
episodes in, but doesn't hurt to start asking early. Just say what you think.
Yeah.
Like, we're awesome and this is helpful. And if it's not awesome and helpful, like, send us a message. Tell us how it can be awesome and helpful, because that's what the whole point is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.